Did you know that the Earth is flat? Wait, what? Why would you say that?
Well, out with it.
Lie to you about what's happening now. INFOWARS tells you the truth about what's happening next. INFOWARS.com.
Do you think that this is a valuable thing to spend time on? I mean, we know all of the things going on in the world, and we probably agree on 99% of things. It's just this one thing that we disagree on, which to me, again, the fact that this came out of nowhere, that nobody talked about Flat Earth before. I mean, and you can do the reason. You can look into the archives. Nobody talked about Flat Earth. Flat Earth Society existed. You say it's a CIA psyop, but it's also the font where most of these arguments came from. So that isn't exactly, you know, positive for the Flat Earth model. Divide, distract, discredit. It's a divide and conquer influence operation. It's something that splits our audience down the middle, and suddenly we're talking about Flat Earth instead of things that are actually important. I think this has been an extremely successful psyop launched around the time that the Smith-Mundt Act, Modernization Act, was passed, allowing for propaganda in the American media landscape.
It really doesn't seem like that Smith-Mundt Act did much in the first place, right? I mean, look at the amount of propaganda that we've seen from the government since 1948.
Right. I don't think it really helped. I mean, I'm not worried about this. Not really. It's not like we're going to end up like North Korea.
The control system, the global control system, wants us to focus on a dot. This is what it does in science with its specializations. You focus on one dot.
Another way, at the scale of an atomic nucleus, the law of gravitation could depend instead on the square of the masses, or the square root, or the inverse cube of the distance. Or G could be a million billion times bigger, and we wouldn't even know it.
I mean, hell, even when I was driving into Austin from the Renaissance Fair last weekend, the first thing I saw of Austin was the top of the skyscrapers. I mean, it's just everyday observations. You can see that the globe exists, that there's a curvature, and that things disappear over the edge of it.
To target not only foreign audiences, which we know happens and people here don't care about quite as much, but also to target domestic audiences.
Ready, set, go.
Yeah, so if you look here, you're going to see that that is a ferrocell cell image of a magnetic field, that orange picture. And if you take the planets, they all fit right within that in little different portions of it. They literally do. I've actually overlaid them and transitioned them. They all fit perfectly within a ferrocell cell image. And then the other image is going to show you the magnetic flux data on the Earth on a plane, which conveniently, once they actually took this off the main website. They took the azimuthal projection off once people found it, and we had to make our own. It's a perfect torus. It's a vortex, just like in the magnetic field. And then that white line through the middle of that bottom right picture there is called a block domain wall. It's a plane, meaning we do live in a torus field. Even in the globe model, they have to admit this, right? And there's always a plane through the center of it. And that's where you reside, is on the plane. We can't go beneath that, right? And neither can anyone that believes in the globe. So just to clarify that, not to necessarily bring it back, but it perfectly explains where we are, explains containment, it explains the motions, Lorentz magnetic force, and it's all way, way more viable than the other model. Like, just
not really. We'll be back in about 60 seconds. We'll continue this conversation. We'll overlay those pictures and see if they match.
If you have two pieces of tape, you can calculate the gravitational force that they in principle exert on each other according to the law of universal gravitation, but it's far too ridiculously small for you to ever have the remotest chance of noticing any effect whatsoever, let alone actually checking that the attraction between them follows the law of universal gravitation as you move the bits of tape farther apart. In contrast, if you stick the two pieces of tape together and then pull them apart, they'll exchange some electric charge and then measurably attract each other, an electrical attraction which is a million billion times stronger than the predicted gravitational attraction.
If round Earth was a lie, it is so impossibly vast. I mean, it just makes no sense. There's no payoff for it other than maybe moderately affecting people's willingness to believe.
I mean, I'm concerned about it. I don't know exactly what the repercussions would be, but it's certainly not good when there's a legal mechanism in place for misleading from the government's perspective.
That's my concern.
Yeah, but
the
but
thing
we'll
is, some people will say, Natan, some people will say, and this goes for Lewis too, when somebody comes on this show and they say, well, listen, we need guns to protect ourselves from the possibility of the government becoming tyrannical. And we just say, come on, but that's not going to happen. It's not very likely. When's the last time that that's actually been an effective way of defending yourself from the government? Somebody could say, you know what, I don't really care about this because I just don't think it's very likely that the government's really going to turn us into North Korea. It's the same kind of argument, right?
Like, you know, the idea that we're in a firmament or that we're the center of the earth. I mean, nothing in God's creation, you know, proves God. That's sort of like one of the aspects of it, right? There are lots of things that could prove God that would be miraculous, that you could go, oh my, there's nothing other than God that explains this. Yeah, the earth being at the center of the universe would be one of those things, but it's not, because it's not, right? It's not the center of the earth, so it doesn't prove that. But nothing in creation proves that. So this idea that, you know, I guess it's almost like...
Well, it's difficult to say whether it should be a crime for politicians to lie. I mean, certainly there's a way of impeaching them, but on the other hand, if congressmen are in it with the president, then there's no way that that'll ever happen. So I don't know what to think about that.
And again, nonsensical, man. If I was the mastermind, the Jesuit priest that figured out that there's a firmament and wants to trick everybody, the last thing I would do would be come up with a lie that would set up generations of having to fake things, right? You could just say, yeah, we tried to go to space. It turns out there's like crazy radiation and everybody dies, so let's not try to leave. Like, there's a million other ways you could do it. You're thinking they went with the strategy of let's fake space travel for the next 100 years, you know, on a continual basis.
We've seen this done in practice, right? In other words, just because this was kind of against the law, formally against the law, it still is done. Look at what happened with the bill of goods we were sold with the Iraq war, right? I mean, to say, well, it may not have been a formal government information operation, I would even argue with that. I mean, there was a decided effort, a concerted effort to convince people of a certain thing in order for them to support going into Iraq. It was very, very clear.
Right. I mean, partially that was the use of what they knew to be faulty information, right?
Right.
Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And then you've got like just tens of thousands of people working on space programs. Let me give an example. I have a friend about 10 years ago. He was working for a company that built the titanium aluminum rings that connected satellites to the vessel that took them into space. So we have a firmament dome around a flat Earth. You don't actually have a model, right? So what is your conception of what Earth is? I mean, again, my conception of Earth is not exactly super scientific. Like, I don't know all of the details of it, but...
Here's a plot showing how our uncertainty about Newton's gravitational law varies across a whole range of distances. Small distances on the left, big distances on the right. And the higher the line, the higher the uncertainty, which you will notice is very high on the left.
Two forms of reality, the perception and the actual, right? So
what this basically means is they want to be able to use these, they're called information operations, to target not only foreign audiences, which we know happens and people here don't care about quite as much, but also to target domestic audiences.
Like, seeing things disappear bottom up would be what happens on a plane Earth. You have the ground ramp up. But just to clarify what is wrong with the observation in the plane, it's not that they're so far away you shouldn't see them, because you're right. He's super high in the air, right? So you're looking up from higher on the globe, and you can see further the higher you are. whether the Earth is flat or whether it's a globe. Get up and a little piece of debris stuck around the Earth, and then gravity coalesced into a sphere that stopped around 238,000 miles away. Just coincidentally, the size of that rock matches up with the size of the sun optically, even though it's 400 times smaller than it is.
Right, that is the case, right? I mean, it is the same size perspectively as the sun, but clearly it's not on the same plane as the sun since it passes in front of it. So whatever that differential is, it has to be, I mean, that is accurate, right?
Our experimental understanding of short-distance gravity is so bad that gravity at the scale of the atomic nucleus could actually be as much as a quadrillion times stronger than Newton's law of gravitation predicts. That's a huge range. It would be like not knowing whether the moon pulls on us with the force of 100 billion tons of rock, or the force of a fruit fly.
Hold on, Austin. We have a guest appearance here. Alex Jones has made his appearance at the Flat Earth Debate.
Listen, I'm only going to ask you a real quick question. Are the sun and other planets flat as well?
I would say that that's a complete propaganda machine that's anti-facts.
That's true. I mean, is there added credibility because it's coming from a government source?
If it's a psyop, it's not working very well because everyone that finds out that the Earth is a geocentric stationary plane are taking their children out of school. They're homeschooling. They're not falling for medical like psyops. They're not falling for any of the stuff going on, the political shenanigans. They see through all of it, and it brings them all back to a very founded spiritual aspect of their life. And again, you asked me if I think it's important. I do think it's important, bro, because I could very easily talk about other things, right? And I wouldn't be nearly as kind of put into a corner, but I don't because this unravels
We're coming into the show here. I just want to thank you for doing this. This has been extremely fun. I know it's been extremely popular. Austin Witsit at Witsit Gets It on X. Go follow him.
Nothing is real. This world is a lie. There is nothing I can feel. Merci beaucoup.
Is lying the same as propaganda?
Well, let's see.
You know,
is lying the same as propaganda?
Is that the same as an information agenda, or is it? I don't know.
I think it is, right? What do you think, Natan?
We all were deceived. We all had the spinning ball put in our classroom from the time we were little wee tots. That says on the bottom, not for educational purposes.
Thanks a lot for searching that out, man. Appreciate that. Fisherman in the box. Fisherman in a box.
Are there still people who say that the Earth is flat? Yes, there are.